For 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic.
While the Jedi were created by George Lucas in the early 1970s when he was writing Star Wars A New Hope, the first canon appearance of the mystical order came in 1999's The Phantom Menace, when the Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi took the screen. Lucas is said to have gotten the name Jedi from the term Jedaigeki, or Japanese period dramas. Star Wars was famously inspired by samurai films, and the connection between the Jedi and the samurai is obvious.
Your insight serves you well.
Soon, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan were joined by young Anakin Skywalker, who would grow to adulthood over the span of the 3 prequel films, and of course ultimately become the villain, Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, the evil and ancient enemies of the Jedi. Many other Jedi were introduced in that film, including a background extra who would later be retconned into an undercover Jedi known as Quinlan Vos. The leaders of the Order, the Jedi Council, also debuted in The Phantom Menace, where the wise and beloved original trilogy character Yoda served as Grand Master.
Feel the Force around you.
Mace Windu was the next highest-ranking member of the Council and had a rare purple lightsaber to show for it.
You're under arrest, Chancellor.
A variety of strange and exotic Jedi sat on the Council of 12, including the Saren Ki-Adi-Mundi and Plo Koon, who received a special mask and eye filters in order to breathe an oxygen atmosphere. Seeing these many new faces was a far cry from the original 3 films, where the Jedi were all but extinct. Now Lucas could give us a female Yoda in Yaddle, or more mysterious characters whose physical appearance only hinted at their lives as Jedi Knights and Masters. Still, these truly alien members of the Council, like the serpentine Oppo Rancisis or the beautiful Adi Gallia, would not have much to do in Episode 1. Their stories would eventually be fleshed out in the expanded universe line of books, comics, and other media, although the EU is no longer considered to be canon. Even so, many of them would eventually get more action on the Clone Wars animated series, which is still part of the official Star Wars story. And several of these Jedi would finally get to brandish their lightsabers in the next film, Attack of the Clones. Taking place a decade after the previous film, Episode 2 introduced several new Jedi, who would become recurring players for years to come. This included the aquatic Kit Fisto and the Master Padawan duo of Luminara Unduli and Barriss Offee. In the Clone Wars series, Offee would eventually lose faith in the Jedi and betray her brothers and sisters in the Order, going as far as to arrange for the Jedi Temple to be bombed.
Barriss Offee, member of the Jedi Order and traitor.
Some new Council members debuted in Attack of the Clones as well, including Shaak Ti and Coleman Trebor. Many of these Jedi would go on to become generals when the Clone Wars broke out at the end of this film. Not all Jedi were fighters, however. Jocasta Nu was the chief librarian of the Jedi Archives, and the temple was home to younglings and Padawans as well, such as Zet Jukasa, who, by the way, was played by George Lucas' son Jet. Here we also learned that Yoda would teach entire classes of younglings in the ways of the Force and the art of the lightsaber. Sifo Dyas was an intriguing addition to the Jedi in that he was dead by the first time he was mentioned in Episode 2. But his actions had a long-standing impact on that galaxy far, far away, as it was he who commissioned the creation of the Clone Army. The animated series would later reveal that it was the fallen Jedi Master Count Dooku who had Dyas killed.
Sometimes things are just that important.
Other Jedi introduced in Attack of the Clones included Pablo Gil and Boltar Swan, who were never seen again in the canon. The Zabrak Agan Kolar only appeared officially in 3 stories and would meet his end at the end of Darth Sidious' lightsaber in Revenge of the Sith. Stas Ali, a cousin of Adi Gallia, made her first appearance during the Battle of Geonosis in Episode 2, along with some 200 other Jedi who had gone mostly unnamed since the film was released. Scores of these Jedi were killed during the battle, providing the first on-screen evidence that the Jedi weren't quite as invincible as the original trilogy of films might have led some to believe. Chronologically, the Clone Wars animated show kicks in at this point. Ahsoka Tano would prove to be a very important and popular character as the Padawan to Anakin Skywalker.
I'm Ahsoka? Master Yoda sent me.
And Asajj Ventress would be equally memorable as a former Jedi learner who turned to the dark side.
That remains to be seen.
Many of the Jedi from the prequels would get substantial development on the show, while new members of the Order like Master Amagun Dai would continue to be introduced. Nadar Veb, from the same race as Admiral Akbar, had just graduated to full knighthood when he was killed by General Grievous. Some of these Jedi made inauspicious debuts, like Bola Ropal, who was tortured to death, or Ord Innocence, who was only seen as a corpse. Alas, things would get worse for the Jedi soon enough. The show also gave us Force babies, young ones who were sensitive to that all-important energy field and thus fell under the Jedi gaze at a young age. So cute. The many races of the Star Wars universe were well represented in the Clone Wars, like the Runan, Halsey, and the Nautolan, Nox. Ikar Oki hailed from the same Mon Calamari race as Admiral Akbar and Nadar Veb. There were also tentacle-headed Twi'leks and reptilian Nikto, like Finn Urte and her unnamed Jedi comrade, who were killed by the cyborg Darth Maul and his brother Savage Opress. Terra Sinube was a Kazian Jedi Master who once again proved that not all Jedi are solely diplomats, warriors, and swordsmen. He excelled as a crime-solving investigator.
A group of men killed your friend Nak Movers.
Younglings received the focus at times on Clone Wars, as in the Season 5 four-part story which focused on Ahsoka's mission to escort a group of children to the Caves of Ilum. It was there that they would find the crystals required to build their own lightsabers. In the episode Night Sisters, we would learn that Kai Narek was Asajj Ventress's master before he died, an incident which in part turned her towards the dark side. Hong Krell had 4 arms, which allowed him to use 2 double-bladed lightsabers simultaneously. Nice. Unfortunately, he too turned to the dark side when he foresaw the end of the Jedi Order. As the Clone Wars, both the show and fictional war itself, headed inexorably towards its end, tragedy struck when the Jedi Temple was bombed. This was an incident ordered by the traitor Barriss Offee, and 6 members of the Jedi were killed in the explosion. Unfortunately, this was only a precursor to the fate the rest of the Jedi Temple residents would soon face with Order 66. Sin Drlig and his guards protected the temple. In time, Drlig would be slaughtered in the Jedi Purge by Anakin Skywalker after he turned to the dark side. The Mikian twin sisters, Tiplar and Tiplee, both met unfortunate ends before the war was even over. Tiplar was killed by one of her own clone troopers when his Order 66 programming was activated prematurely.
Sister!
And Tiplee was cut down by Count Dooku himself. Rig Nema was a Jedi doctor who tended to none other than Yoda at one time.
Probably what happens when you approach 900 years old.
The last Jedi revealed in the Clone Wars series was Master Tuan, who was seen as a corpse in an unfinished but canon episode of the show, when Obi-Wan and Anakin were sent to investigate her murder. In 2014, Lucasfilm announced that its expanded universe stories were no longer considered canon. However, several new official canon books, short stories, and comics have been released since then, revealing a handful of new Jedi. For the most part, these Jedi have only gotten a passing mention or reference, and we don't even know what most of them look like. Revenge of the Sith featured surprisingly few new Jedi, considering the film depicted the decimation of the Order. Still, a group of younglings were shown moments before their murder. This included poor Sors Bandian, who would pay the price for his misplaced faith in Master Skywalker. The Padawans Hui and Benet were also killed by Anakin, who had by now become Darth Vader, during his attack on the Jedi Temple that fateful night. Of course, some Jedi did survive the dark years of the Empire's reign. The animated series Star Wars Rebels features Kanan Jarrus. He was a Padawan when his master Deepa Billaba sacrificed herself to save him during Order 66. In order to stay hidden, he suppressed his true identity and Jedi nature in the years that followed. But he eventually met the Force-sensitive boy Ezra Bridger, who he took on as his own Padawan. What happened to Kanan and Ezra by the time of the original trilogy of films is unclear.
What God am I? The last of the Jedi will you be?
It would be Luke Skywalker who would take center stage at this time, as the heir to the Jedi ways, the savior of the Rebel Alliance, and the only one who could redeem his father Anakin, thus bringing the balance to the Force that had been long prophesized according to legend.
I know there is good in you. The Emperor hasn't driven it from you fully.
It remains to be seen how Luke will figure into The Force Awakens, or what other characters will be revealed as Jedi in the film. Or for that matter, if any of the beloved expanded universe characters will be incorporated into canon as the franchise moves forward. But one thing is certain, the Force will be with the Jedi, and the Star Wars fans who love them, always.